My parents snubbed my wedding because I got married before my perfect sister. Now their perfect family image is finally falling apart. The two empty seats in the front row of my wedding ceremony, draped in soft white fabric, were a silent, screaming void in the otherwise perfect garden setting. Every time I glanced their way, a cold knot twisted in my stomach, pulling tighter with each passing minute, a tangible ache that even the radiant joy of my husband couldn't fully erase. For as long as I could remember, Molin had been the sun around which our family revolved. She was the golden child, a luminous presence who seemed to effortlessly conquer every challenge. From elementary school spelling bees and science fairs, where her trophies glinted on the mantel, to her high school reign as class president and prom queen, she was a walking, talking highlight reel. Tall, slender, and undeniably striking, she even embarked on a modeling career while pursuing her business degree. I still remember the celebration when she landed her first professional gig during her sophomore year, a lavish party thrown by my parents, with her perfectly framed headshot taking pride of place above our fireplace, where it remains to this day. The same year, I quietly earned my computer science degree. My parents merely offered a fleeting, almost absent-minded, "Well done," before diving back into planning Molin's next photo session. It was always like this. She soared up the corporate ladder, securing a corner office and a company car by 30, a senior executive. Me, I'm a mid-level software developer at a respectable company. I love my work, it's a good profession, but it's not the kind of career that makes parents beam with pride at family gatherings. And then there was the physical contrast. I was shorter, curvier. My mother, with a casual cruelty that still stings, would sign me up for unwanted workout classes, put me on diets, and remark, "Molin never struggles with her weight." Or, "You could look as nice as your sister if you just put in a little more effort." Even as a teenager, when I learned to armor myself against her words, they left their mark, carving out an insidious insecurity. Over the years, I started to accept these distinctions. It was a slow, painful surrender to the fact that my parents would never share the same delight in my accomplishments as they did in Molin's. What choice did I have? I had spent years trying to earn their approval, joining clubs, taking classes they suggested, even, and I'm not proud of this, attempting modeling for a short, humiliating stint that Molin never lets me forget. But nothing was ever enough. I was simply the second order, invisible in the blinding light of their adoration for her. So, sometime in my mid-20s, I gave up. I focused on building my own life, finding professional success on my own terms, and cultivating relationships with people who saw me. And honestly, things got better. Knowing their obsession with appearances, I learned to keep interactions with my parents superficial. At mandatory Christmas meals or family get-togethers, I'd offer polite nods and strained smiles while they gushed about Molin's latest job, boyfriend, or exotic vacation. They were so consumed by her triumphs, they barely registered my emotional distance. But what came next truly shocked me. It was at a computer conference that I met my now husband through a mutual friend. He actually saw me. He appreciated my dry sense of humor, my coding skills, and yes, even my body type. From day one, he never suggested I change, never compared me to anyone else. After 4 years of dating, he proposed. We were just at home enjoying takeaway and our favorite show. It was perfect. Naturally, I told my parents last year that I was engaged. Their response, or lack thereof, should have been my first clue. There was no congratulations, just a chilling stillness. My mother eventually broke the silence, questioning if I was certain. I wanted to jump right in and suggested I improve my physical condition before the wedding. My father said almost nothing. At our engagement party, my husband, far more observant than my anxiety-addled self, noticed their odd behavior. They spent most of the evening huddled in a corner, whispering over my mother's phone. He later told me he'd overheard them talking to Molin, who was clearly upset. They were saying things like, "This wasn't the plan," and "Never expected Rebecca to get married first." This pattern of subtle dismissal and overt favoritism is a classic example of parental triangulation, where one child is consistently elevated and another is subtly undermined, often creating a deep rift between siblings. The parents project their idealized image onto the favored child, while the other child struggles for validation, often internalizing feelings of inadequacy and becoming emotionally distant as a coping mechanism. Wedding planning encountered minor setbacks. My mother, who had already curated countless Pinterest boards for Molin's hypothetical future wedding, showed zero interest in helping me choose a dress or venue. When I finally selected a simple, elegant A-line gown that made me feel beautiful, she merely commented that it was practical and suitable for my figure. The truth is, most of the preparations were handled by my future mother, in-law who treated me like the daughter she'd always wanted. I meticulously reviewed and double-checked the guest list with my fiancé, ensuring no one was missed, and sent out both electronic and paper invitations. I know for a fact my parents received theirs. The digital invites had read receipts. When I realized they hadn't RSVP'd, I called, texted, and emailed them repeatedly. My messages were met with silence or vague responses about being very busy and needing to check their schedules. I was too swamped with wedding preparations to dwell on it. But a persistent unease settled deep in my chest. My in-laws were incredibly supportive, helping with everything from seating charts to floral arrangements. Even at the beautiful bridal shower hosted by my husband's sister, the glaring absence of my own family was never mentioned, a testament to their quiet compassion. This was just the tip of the iceberg. The wedding day itself, despite their absence, was beautiful. A relaxed afternoon celebration in a garden, following a morning ceremony. Everyone remarked on how content and in love we looked. Yet, there were moments when their absence felt like a physical agony: the empty front row seats, the phantom H during the father-daughter dance that I was denied. After the honeymoon, I sought answers. When I finally reached them on the phone, my mother launched into a lengthy tirade. She claimed they were deeply hurt because they'd never received a formal invitation. She ranted about how careless I was, how she'd always wanted to help organize her daughter's wedding, and how she couldn't comprehend why I would leave them out of such a significant occasion. I was utterly perplexed. I was certain we had sent both types of invitations. During the call, I calmly checked our records and confirmed delivery of both the electronic and physical invites. I didn't confront them about their attempts to gaslight me. I just said, "I'm sorry for the error," and hung up, a hollow feeling echoing in my chest. My husband later brought up a string of incidents that illuminated their true intentions: their surprised, rather than delighted, reaction to our engagement, their continuous excuses to avoid wedding planning. He hadn't shared these observations earlier, wanting to spare me anxiety during planning. But in retrospect, the pattern was brutally clear. The idea that I, the less successful daughter, was marrying before their beloved Molen was simply too much for them to bear. Their behavior validated a suspicion I'd always harbored but resisted. In their eyes, I would never measure up to my sister. The most depressing realization was that even my wedding day, a celebration of love and new beginnings, had become another battleground in their relentless war to uphold their idealized family image, with Molen at its core. The way my parents denied receiving invitations, despite clear evidence, and then blamed me for their absence, is a textbook example of gaslighting. This manipulative tactic makes the victim question their own memory, perception, and sanity. It's often used by individuals who are unwilling to take responsibility for their actions, instead projecting blame onto others to maintain their self-image or control the narrative. Molen, I hear, recently got engaged after dating someone for a year. Through family members in group chats I don't participate in, my parents are openly gushing about planning an elaborate wedding for her. They're already boasting about securing upscale venues and luxury gowns, and my mother is taking Molen to private fittings at high-end boutiques, all the mother-daughter time I was never allowed. It's ironic, though, because a surprising number of our family members are now refusing to attend Molen's wedding and engagement party. My parents' actions at my wedding have apparently become a hot topic. When asked why my parents weren't there, I simply state what I believe is real. They couldn't bear it when I married before their beloved daughter. I present the facts as I perceive them, without embellishment or a bid for sympathy. A few days ago, my parents contacted me, accusing me of purposefully attempting to spoil Molen's wedding. They claimed the relatives they'd spoken to were using reasons to avoid any of Molen's wedding festivities. My cousin, to whom my sister had vented, told her that people were reluctant to come because they'd heard about my parents' treatment of me. My parents insist I'm spreading false stories because I'm envious of Molen's impending lavish wedding. The problem is, I'm only telling people the truth. Perhaps, if the truth makes them look bad, they should examine their own conduct instead of blaming me for the consequences. As things continued to shift, I found it increasingly difficult to maintain the pretense of a relationship with my parents. Their behavior during my wedding finally laid bare a truth I could no longer ignore. I would never be enough for them, no matter what I did. Their absence is no longer the hardest part. It's coming to terms with the fact that I never had the kind, supportive parents I always yearned for. I decided it was time to put everything on the table. My parents quickly started with accusations, claiming I was jealous of Molen and had planned the entire thing to sabotage her. I did something I had never done before. I agreed with them, but not in the way they anticipated. Instead of defending myself, I looked them dead in the eye, my voice surprisingly steady, and said, "You're correct. I'm envious. Not of Molin's career, not her accomplishments, not her appearance. I'm envious of the unwavering love and support you've shown her, which you never even made an effort to show me." There was a stunned silence on the line. My mother then stammered, claiming I was exaggerating, and that they had always treated us equally. Something broke inside of me at that moment. Feelings repressed for years surged forth, hot and raw. I recounted every birthday where Molin's latest success had overshadowed my own small victories. The high school graduation dinner my mother cancelled because Molin had a modeling callback. The fact that Molin's prom dress cost more than a year of my college textbooks. I pressed on, my father trying to cut me off, accusing me of exaggerating. I spoke of the pain of watching them spend years planning my sister's fictitious wedding while showing no interest in my own. I told them how much it hurt to see their seats vacant, how my mother-in-law had to help with everything from planning to dress shopping. Their reaction was telling. They flipped it on me. "Why did you never speak up if you felt this way?" My mother insisted, as if I hadn't tried to communicate for years. My father went on to say that by discussing these emotions with family members, I was being unjust and spiteful. Then my mother delivered the final blow that clarified everything. "We always knew you were insecure about her success, Rebecca, but we never imagined you'd go to such lengths as to try to ruin Molin's wedding out of spite. This is not how we brought you up." I realized they couldn't even hear me. They believed their behavior and my emotions had nothing to do with the situation. It was all about Molin's reaction. Even during this discussion about their absence from my wedding, they were more concerned about Molin's impending nuptials than the hurt they had caused me. For the first time in my life, I didn't retract or apologize. Instead, I expressed my thoughts directly. "You're correct on one point. I was raised by you. You instilled in me the belief that I would never measure up, that Molin's accomplishments would always be more significant than mine, that upholding your ideal family image was more important than my feelings. However, you also taught me that I deserve better than this, which was something you didn't mean to teach me. The inability of my parents to acknowledge their role in my pain and their immediate deflection of blame exemplifies a profound lack of emotional intelligence and empathy. They are so focused on maintaining their self-perception and the family's outward image that they cannot genuinely engage with my feelings or accept any responsibility, choosing instead to label my authentic expressions as spite or jealousy. There was a long pause before my father spoke, his voice cool and collected. "Maybe it's time for us to stop acting like we're bad parents, since you've already determined that we are, and you obviously take pleasure in seeing us suffer. Since you are family, we assumed you would assist in resolving this issue, but it is clear that you have made your own decisions." My mother delivered the last jab. "Perhaps you simply couldn't cope with not being the center of attention, even though we always tried to treat you both fairly, Rebecca. That's not our fault. You made the decision to play the victim." I refrained from arguing. Why would it matter? Everything I had been saying had just been validated by them. They were unable to admit their involvement in anything, even at this final discussion. I just hung up. I was surprised to feel relieved after the call. Tears were shed, to be sure, but they weren't the frantic, heartbreaking ones I remembered from my early years. They were liberating tears. For the first time, I had expressed everything I needed to say without holding back or feeling guilty. Later, my husband found me gazing at the sunset from our back porch. He sat next to me and grasped my hand without saying anything. "They're never going to change, are they?" I asked after a time. "No," he said, squeezing my hand, "but you have, and that is what counts." He is correct. I've changed. The young child who frantically tried to win her parents' approval is no longer there. The woman who came out of that last conversation no longer needs their validation. While acknowledging that my parents will never be the people I need them to be is painful, it is not as painful as holding out hope that they would change. For the first time, I don't really care what happens with my sister's wedding or the family drama. I've had my say, and they now have to deal with whatever comes up. The most peculiar aspect. I feel as though a burden I've carried my entire life has finally been lifted. Although it's not the happy ending I had hoped for with my parents, perhaps it was the one I needed, the ability to quit striving for love that ought to have come naturally. Just 3 days after my run-in with our parents, things took a surprising turn. Molin, it seems, decided to become involved in the drama, but her strategy failed horribly. Yesterday morning, My sister sent me a thoughtfully composed message. Her condescending tone, refined over the years, was unmistakable. What you said to your parents was totally inappropriate. They have helped us through every stage of our lives and given us everything. You cannot simply blame them for being poor parents because you are insecure about the decisions you have made in life. She continued with her typical blend of moral superiority and covert jabs. I understand that your wedding wasn't exactly what you had envisioned, but that doesn't mean you should try to destroy mine. There's nothing wrong with wanting a celebration that honors those of us who have put in a lot of effort to meet specific standards. Rebecca. Not everything needs to be a contest. I didn't bother to answer. I've learned that interacting with her merely provides her with more ammunition. After years of putting up with her manipulative conduct, I just blocked her number. Molan has never been one to tolerate being ignored, so I assumed that would be the end of it. A few hours later, my husband called me at work, laughing so hard he could barely speak. Apparently, unable to reach me directly, Molan had found his personal number, probably through a common acquaintance, and sent him a string of texts outlining the precise reasons why our sibling relationship had always been fractured. She began her initial communication to him professionally enough. A's Rebecca's sister and someone who cares deeply about our family's well-being, I feel compelled to reach out. However, it quickly devolved into her actual motivations. She informed my husband that, as the new man in Rebecca's life, he had an obligation to help her behave in a more suitable manner. The messages became increasingly patronizing. Family dynamics are complex, she told my husband, a professional software architect with an MBA, adding that someone with Rebecca's sensitivity might not understand the bigger picture. She advised him to help me see reason before I irreparably harm family relationships. The true kicker, though, was her attempt to play on what she believed to be his social climbing impulses. In fact, she wrote, "Surely you understand that maintaining good relationships with successful family members like myself could be beneficial for your future. Rebecca's behavior is only hurting her own prospects, and by extension, yours." Having always been able to see through Molan's facade, my spouse found her attempt at manipulation humorous. He particularly enjoyed her presumption that her business rank or the prospect of networking opportunities would somehow impress him. In his own words, "She really doesn't know me at all, does she?" We went over the messages together when I got home that night. Instead of feeling offended or upset, I was laughing with my husband. Seeing Molan's deceptive methods exposed, particularly when they were aimed at someone totally impervious to them, was incredibly liberating. I learned something significant about my sister. Despite all her achievements and success, she is still the insecure adolescent who needs to tear others down to feel superior. It's clear how little she knows about good relationships that she believed she could control me by manipulating my husband when her direct approach failed. She swiftly turned to trying to use him against me, which was the most revealing aspect. She used to do precisely that in high school. She attempted to turn my friends against me when she was unable to bully me directly. Different decade, same strategies. With this fresh viewpoint, I now understand how Molan's actions went beyond simple sibling rivalry throughout our early years. She made a concerted effort to maintain her status as the favorite child, always telling our parents and me how much better she was. She had to overshadow whatever I accomplished. She had to point out my shortcomings to everyone I made friends with. My response to her games is different now. Her messages would have caused me to fall into self-doubt 10 years ago. I would have been upset and hurt 5 years ago. Today, simply put, I'm sick of the drama and find her blatant attempts at manipulation amusing. My husband's response was ideal. Rather than becoming embroiled in her drama, he merely responded, "Thank you for your concern about Rebecca's well-being. As her husband, I'm focused on supporting her happiness, not managing her behavior. I think it's best if you direct any future concerns to Rebecca directly. Have a nice day." Molan sent one last message after not receiving the desired response. "I see she's poisoned you against the family too. Don't say I didn't try to help when this all blows up in your faces." Ironically, Molan's attempt to assist has further strengthened my resolve to keep my distance from the destructive dynamics of my family. Nothing has changed as evidenced by her messages to my spouse. She is still the same cunning individual who feels the need to dictate every story and who perceives any departure from her ideal family script as a danger. Knowing that her attempts at persuasion were so totally unsuccessful is perhaps the most pleasant aspect of the entire incident. She succeeded in bringing my spouse and I closer together rather than causing us to drift apart. Totally unconcerned by her fears of social repercussions, We joked about her texts and planned a weekend trip during the evening. I've come to understand that true family isn't about upholding facades or dictating stories. It's about standing together, laughing together, and supporting one another when someone tries to manipulate you, even your own sister. I'm more certain than ever that I'd be better off keeping a safe distance from Molin's wedding drama, instead of getting sucked into my family's never-ending power struggles. My husband and I have made the decision to concentrate on creating our own happiness. Success is said to be the best form of retaliation, but I'm coming to realize that real success isn't about impressing people. It's about accepting your decisions and surrounding yourself with individuals that encourage, rather than impede, your own development. I feel more successful than ever by that metric. 2 weeks have passed since my sister's unsuccessful attempt to control my husband, and things have taken unanticipated turns. The situation is worsening despite my parents' desperate attempts to repair their reputation. I found out through family ties that my parents have been on a frantic quest to correct the narrative. They've been phoning each relative separately, accusing me of spreading vile tales because I'm envious of Molin's ideal wedding. They claim I'm just resentful since her wedding will be far more sophisticated and gorgeous than mine. According to their most recent tale, I purposefully left them out of my wedding so I could act like the victim. It's funny that they still reside in the same home they've owned for 30 years and have had the same email addresses since the invention of email. But they're claiming I sent their invitation to an old email address and an old physical address. The good news is that their attempts to limit the harm are failing miserably. Our family members don't believe it. Actually, a number of family members have shared their personal accounts of my parents' history of partiality. According to one aunt, my mother had previously engaged in similar antics at family weddings, attempting to guarantee that Molin was the life of the party. The way my extended family has reacted to my parents' manipulation is the most fulfilling development. Important family members, some of whom were expected to have significant parts in the event, have stopped supporting Molin's wedding. They may no longer have access to the exclusive location they were able to secure through family ties. Even a family friend's luxury garment business has unexpectedly experienced scheduling conflicts. At a family get-together last weekend, things reached a breaking point. It seems that when someone naively inquired about my wedding pictures, my mother became upset. Out of what she perceived as jealousy, she started a defensive tirade about how I had changed after getting married and was attempting to destroy the family. Her tantrum backfired, stunning a number of relatives who were unaware of the circumstances and further harming their carefully maintained reputation. It's especially ironic that my parents' frantic efforts to maintain their ideal family facade are the very reason it's falling apart. Each time they attempt to justify their absence from my wedding, they end up disclosing more about who they really are. People are becoming more aware of their deception the more they attempt to portray me as the bad guy. Family members are now picking sides after previously remaining impartial. Recently, even my father's brother, who had always kept silent to maintain harmony, apologized for not speaking up sooner about how they treated me. He has made the decision not to go to any of Molin's wedding-related festivities with his family. I don't have to answer any of this explicitly. The truth is taking care of everything for me. Molin and my parents always wind up revealing more of their destructive conduct when they attempt to twist the tale. It comes out that all those years of remaining silent and putting up with their treatment in an effort to keep the peace was really just a way of allowing their actions. My husband said it in the best possible words. They constructed a facade of the ideal family over many years, but it was based on emotional manipulation and partiality. Eventually, it was going to fall apart. I'm doing better than ever personally. I no longer have to worry about attempting to win my parents' approval. The stress of controlling Molin's emotions has subsided. I'm not concerned about upholding their ideal family image for the first time in my life. Sometimes the best retaliation is just letting the truth speak for itself rather than taking action. I'm grateful to have found the courage to advocate for myself, and sometimes you need to see what true family support looks like from strangers. The ability to quit striving for love that ought to have come naturally is a profound freedom. This story illustrates the destructive power of parental favoritism and emotional manipulation, not just on the disfavored child, but on the entire family system. The parents' desperate attempts to control the narrative and their subsequent loss of social standing highlight how authenticity and truth eventually dismantle facades built on lies and conditional love. It's a powerful reminder that self-worth must come from within, not from external validation. What do you think? In situations where family dynamics become openly toxic and manipulative, is it ever truly possible to repair those relationships, or is severing ties the only path to genuine peace and well-being? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, or if you've experienced similar family dynamics, remember that understanding the psychological underpinnings can be a powerful first step towards healing and setting healthy boundaries. Parental favoritism often leads to deep-seated feelings of inadequacy, while gaslighting erodes self-trust. Learning to recognize these patterns and prioritize your own emotional well-being is crucial. If you're struggling, consider seeking support from a therapist or counselor who can provide tools and strategies for navigating complex family relationships. For further insights into topics like narcissistic behavior, emotional abuse, and setting boundaries with difficult family members, explore resources from reputable psychological organizations or books on family systems theory. Your mental health and self-respect are paramount.